So my name is Karen Anderson, and I am currently working as a consultant in the nonprofit community. For many years, I worked as the director of the Maine Women's Fund, which was like a community foundation funding organizations all over the state of Maine to improve the lives of women and girls. And my lifelong career, really, as a volunteer, has been in support of Planned Parenthood, both in the northern New England area and in the Washington, D.C. area before that. I consider myself a community activist and change agent, and that has been consistent in all the work I've done everywhere. So we had, my mother and I, the requisite, sort of talks at various stages of my childhood I can remember, but they were very much the body part and fact kind of conversation that I think is pretty typical, sadly, even today. And so from a relatively young age, I knew about how people had sex, and that was how babies were made. But I can't recall really ever having a conversation with either one of my parents that had to do with how I felt about my body, or how I felt about boys' bodies, or how I felt about the possibility of sex and what that was going to do for me on an emotional level. I don't remember those conversations at all. So as I said, this sort of notion that this was a really big deal beyond the physical point and the physical connection. And I think, again, not really having talked about that very much in my conversations with my parents, it took me a very long time as a young adult to really understand that the big deal about sex is not the mechanical things, it's the intimacy things. It's the how big a deal it really is to share your body with somebody else on so many levels.
Yeah.
I think, at least for me and for many people, both women and men that I've talked with about this, it's not just a simple physical act. And as women, every time we have sex, even with the best contraceptives available, we are always at least some tiny risk of getting pregnant. And that is a huge responsibility, huge, I believe, for both people, if it's men and women having sex together. But, we need to, or I wish I'd had more good conversation about that with my parents, because my parents are still married after 52 or 3 years now. And they would have had a lot to share with me because they made a very big commitment when they got together. And it's too bad that, it took me well into my 20s to really get that. And so what I hope now is that, as we have better conversations as a community about what it means to bring up healthy kids, that we can all make ourselves more available to the young people in our lives and be able to be and willing to be that kind of safe place for questions to be asked.